born and raised here in Lincoln, Nebraska. I grew up on the north central side of Lincoln, between Holdridge and O Street, from 27th on up to 33rd. I did move around a lot, but that was the central location where I grew up at, because my grandma had a house there on 33rd between U and T. I'm engaged. I have 2 kids. I have a daughter that's 5 years old. Then I have a son that is 16 months. So that's a little background about me. Like I said, I grew up here in Lincoln, Nebraska. I moved around a lot when I was a kid. We basically moved around. I'm 28 now. I just bought a house about 3 years ago. So this last 3 years is probably the most consistent and more stable me personally I have been in my whole entire life. Before that, I was moving around a lot. I remember when I was 5 years old, I went to Hartley, then I went to Huntington, then to Pershing, to the McPhee, to Clinton, to Campbell, then to Elliott. I got more stable as my time went. I went to Cutler Middle School for 3 years, then I went to Leffler because I thought I was going to go to Lincoln High. Then from there, I transferred for some personal reasons over to Northeast, and I went to Northeast 3 years in a row. Then I graduated from Northeast. I went on to Nebraska. Well, I went on to a junior college, went there for 2 years, Central Community College. Then from there, I went to Nebraska Westland, got my degree, my BA in history. Then from there, I went to, I took a couple years off, and I just recently finished up my master's program at Bellevue University in public administration. So that gives you a little history on my education background. I mean, before I can start getting into my experiences and all that stuff in colleges, I mean, I gotta get you the foundation of why I went to college and why that was a major priority for me to go to college and graduate in that sense. I'm from the Omaha Tribe. My mom's full-blooded Omaha. My dad's half black, half white, and he got a little Puerto Rican in him. So I got a little bit of everything in me. I grew up in violence. I grew around domestic violence. My dad was abusive to me. We moved around a lot. I lived in poverty. My mom worked, she worked night and day for us to provide for us. I witnessed violence. I witnessed drugs. I witnessed the whole deal. I witnessed alcohol. I remember when I was 5 years old, and we stayed off. You guys all live in Lincoln, right? We stayed off 34th and Peach Street. And we stayed in this infested house apartment. There was mice running. I remember sleeping on the bed and whatnot, and there'd be mice running all over the place. Like we literally, me and my brothers and sisters, we cuddled up on the bed because there was mice all over the place. And there was roaches and everything. But I remember, I don't drink or smoke. And why I don't drink and smoke is because one, that is alcoholism plagues, the Native American community. And I've seen the effects and the impact it had on my aunts and my uncle, and I've seen the effect on certain situations. I was always the person that learned through others not to make the same mistake. And I remember when I was 5 years old, and it was like early in the morning, because I remember I was sleeping, and somebody was pounding on the door. When they came up, they brought my dad up. My dad got beat up by 8 Bloods and a baseball bat. I couldn't even recognize it was my dad. And that stuck into my head, and as the time went by, I started to learn that the reason that happened is because of alcoholism. When I was in 9th grade, my aunt passed away from alcoholism. Just recently, 2 weeks ago, my uncle just passed away from alcoholism. And I see that my aunts and my other aunts are on the same road. And my mom never drunk. And she used to always tell me why. I grew up around drugs. I remember sitting at the table at a young age, and my dad would come home with bricks of marijuana and throw it on the table. And me and my brother would be sitting there going through it and getting all the seeds out of there so we can bag it up and ship it off to wherever we needed to be. My dad was very abusive to me because my dad was in and out of my life up until I was 6, until he realized that his kids had some potential to play basketball. Because if you know my family, you know from the top to the bottom, all my brothers and sisters can play basketball. My dad, when he realized that we had some potential and some athletic ability, that's when he started coming around and started focusing. He wasn't coming around just to see how I was doing and check in with me. He was there making sure I was doing what I needed to do for athletics. He made me do push-ups every day. He made me do sit-ups every day. He made me run around the block every day. And if I didn't do that, I would get in trouble. If I didn't score enough points, I would get in trouble. Okay. So he was there all the time. I seen how he treated my mom. I mean, all these experiences and all this trauma that I went through at an early age has made me who I am today. I can't address none of the experiences and none of the stuff that I did and the impact and why I went to college if I don't sit there and express to you guys all the trauma and stuff that I went through when I was young. I used to sit there and literally sit back and watch my mom sleep all day, work all night. Sleep all day, work all night. And she did that repeatedly for years. Years. I'm the oldest of my family. I have 2 brothers and 3 sisters. I had, majority of the time through my whole life, I was the one that was being the father to the rest of those kids. Even if you ask my dad nowadays, he'll sit there and say that I had to grow up fast. I remember when I was 5 years old and I used to walk, my dad used to send me to the gas station right there on 33rd and O. 5 years old, crossing O Street on 33rd and O. At 7, I was changing diapers and making bottles. My dad was in and out of jail. I didn't even see my dad kill somebody right in front of me when I was 6. And me as a kid, I got a lot of, but that resentment, that resentment and all that anger towards my dad has made me who I am today because it's made me a better person. Because I didn't want to be like my dad. So that's why I stand here today and I get the opportunity to talk to you guys. And hopefully to open your guys' eyes and see that anything is possible if you put your mind to it. Anything is possible if you feel it in your heart and you want it that bad, it's possible. But you, as an individual, have to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, do I want it? Because if you want it, and you want it that bad, nothing is going to stop you. Nothing. Nothing is going to stop you. Yeah, I can sit here and say, yeah, I was really good at basketball. I was all conference, all city, honorable mention, all state, averaged 17 points a game my senior year. I can sit here and tell you that I went off to junior college and I was first team all region, all conference, averaging over 16, 17 points a game in all conference play. Outside of conference, overall my scoring average is 19 to 20 points a game. I can sit here and tell you that I was one of the best shooters, 3-point shooters. I can sit here and tell you that I had a bunch of Division II schools looking at me. I had a handful of Division I schools looking at me when I was in junior college. I had original signed to Northwest Missouri State, down in Marysville, Missouri. I was packed up, ready to go. But there was some family. I was always the type of person that put family first, no matter what. My family is first. I used to go to school at Columbus. I used to pack up my stuff and shoot down to Lincoln or to Kearney, to Grand Island to watch my brother Michi play. I used to do the same thing with my sisters. My sisters, Lisa can sit there and testify. My sister Shaquila was probably one of the best players. She was probably the top freshman as a freshman at Lincoln High throughout the whole state. My sister Emma was probably one of the best shooters. She was really good at shooting, and she can play some defense. My sister Eva, she was really scrappy, but she knew how to play. So I would just rush around and drop everything at school, and I used to get around the whole state of Nebraska just to watch my brothers and sisters play and get back home. So I always put family first. So when that time was going between me getting ready to get all pumped up to go down to Marysville, some family situations started occurring. Started realizing my family needed me, my mom, my sisters, and my brothers. And at the time, I was dating somebody that was going to Nebraska Westland, so I took the opportunity to sit back and reevaluate my whole plan and stuff like that. Because I'm very goal-driven, dream-driven. If I dream of something and I imagine it, like I said, nothing's going to stop me. Because I'm going to keep pushing, I'm going to keep pushing, I'm going to keep pushing until I get there. So now I was at this point in life where I had to make a decision. Either be here for my family or go and chase my own dreams. I chose to be here with my family. So that planted me and got me to Nebraska Wesleyan. But let's rewind a little bit back to how I got to Southeast Community, or the Central Community College. Coming out of high school, basketball was my main priority. I didn't have the looks and stuff that I wanted to when I was coming out of high school. I had a lot of Division III schools looking at me. I felt like I was better than playing Division III. So I figured I would go down and go to a junior college for 2 years and see what my odds would, see if I can increase my opportunity, which it did. So I went up there. I mean, it was cool. I went to class. I finished at Central Community College with a 3.9 GPA, and I made the dean's list my last year. Education has always been a priority for me. Why? Because I used to sit around the table with my grandpa Lorenzo. I used to sit around the table with him. He used to always tell me, education, education, education. Learn as much as you can from that white man. So all he used to push to us, education, education. Learn as much as you can from the white man. Because he used to tell me stories. And one of the stories that really stuck to me and made me understand, because nowadays if you look in the community and you look at all that stuff, a lot of people that are sitting in your position don't know that the opportunities that y'all have right in front of you, you guys are taking for granted. 60 or 70 years ago, the opportunity would have never been there for them. The opportunity wasn't there. But now here, you guys have the opportunity to be whatever you guys want to be. Do not take it for granted. Because a lot of people do. So here, my grandpa was telling me a story. They stayed on the Omaha reservation. 1941, his family made the decision, my great-great-grandparents made the decision to leave the reservation life and come down to Lincoln for a better opportunity, a better life, just education. So they made that decision to leave the reservation life and come down to the city. This is 10 years before the Relocation Act. You guys know what the Relocation Act is?
Y'all should. We've been going over it in the curriculum. IRA, Indian Relocation Act.
So what they did, to refresh your memory, is that they went across and picked people off the reservation and threw them in cities so they can assimilate into that culture. But my great-great-grandparents made that decision well before that. While they came down here. At the time, my grandpa had an education of 4th grade. He came down here, he went to every school in the Lincoln area. Nobody would take him in because he was Native American. It wasn't until 5 years later, 1946. You guys ever been down to North Bottoms? They got that Haywood School there. They turned it into apartment buildings now. But they got that apartment building used to be Haywood School. That school took my grandpa in 5 years later. So my grandpa went to class, he looked around, he dropped out. My grandma came down from the reservation, and she came down and she only had a 3rd grade education. So my grandma and my grandpa always pushed education. My mom did. And the person I hated and resented the most in my father was the first person to introduce college to me. You're going to go to college. You're going to go to college. The person that I hated and resented the most is the first one that planted that seed in my head. But me looking at the experience that my grandma and my grandpa had to deal with when they were back in there made me a better person because it made me open my eyes and realize that the opportunities that I had right in front of me. Education. So that's what inspired me, watching my mom work night and day to provide for 8 people in her house. Me waking up in the morning and going to the refrigerator and seeing that there's no food in there. but a pot of goulash that's gonna last us the whole week. That's what inspired me, and those are some of the stuff that got me to where I'm at right now. So yeah, I went to CCC Community College, got a associate degree in just general education. Transferred to Nebraska Wesleyan. Going to Nebraska Wesleyan by far was probably the best God-given gift that somebody can possibly give to me. Because Nebraska Wesleyan really opened my eyes to a whole different world. Because it allowed me the opportunity to learn how life works and how the world works on the other side. You could say, quote unquote, the white man's world. It got me the opportunity. And you'll never hear me say nothing about Nebraska Wesleyan, because Nebraska Wesleyan has treated me like they were one of their kids. The professors were great. Yes, I would sit in the class and I would be in my sociology class or my Native American class, and, some of the students in the class would be undereducated about Native ways, or uneducated about, people that live in poverty and stuff like that. So I would get in debates with the whole class. But the professors always had my back. I remember one time I sat in class with 25 people, and I did a speech in my, oral communication class. And I did a speech in front of 25 all-white students about why we shouldn't celebrate Columbus Day. But those experiences and knowing that way and interacting and getting to know people, that gave me an opportunity to learn from the other side. But understanding, when I went to Nebraska Wesleyan, yeah, there's a lot of cultural shock. But I seen that as an opportunity to learn. I started playing basketball there. I went there and tried to play basketball. There was too much politics in there. I just could not adapt and fit into the schemes, into what they were trying to accomplish. I just couldn't mold myself into their type of basketball. So I quit. I sat there for a week and was depressed and stressed out because I didn't want to give up the one game that I loved the most, the one game that got me through so much bad times and so much hard times, basketball. So for a week, I was really stressed. But it wasn't until this Sunday afternoon when I went to go watch my younger brother play, Tommy. At the time, he was in 8th grade. Then a light bulb went on. I seen my brother struggling. I seen that my brother's skills and development wasn't getting up to where he needed to be, where he should have been at that point. Because when I was in youth basketball, it was me and my cousin. It was another native, Tyron Candy. We used to run.
That's my uncle.
That's your uncle? Yeah.
Millie's son?
No. I can't remember. It's Terry and Cindy's son.
Oh. I don't think it's somebody else.
When we was younger, we used to run the state of Nebraska. Like, we stepped on the court, we were beating teams by 20 points. Like, it was nothing. But at that point, I seen my brother wasn't making the progress and development like it was. That's when the light bulb clicked on. That's when I decided to make the decision that I was going to step away from me physically playing basketball to me physically stepping on the sideline and start coaching. Because at the time, I was employed and working at the Salvation Army. So I stepped away from the game of basketball, put my shoes up, I was done. So I started coaching my brother's team. At the time, they were called Cosmos Basketball. This is how the whole dream, I don't know, I'm an executive director of a nonprofit called Guidance Success Youth Club. I'll get into that in the whole scheme of this, but I'm going to tell you how that got started. But I'm all just all over the place. When I get talking, I'm just all over the place. I apologize. But we can go back to my Nebraska Wesleyan experience. I mean, it was good to me. Do you guys got any questions or want to know anything about my experience at Nebraska Wesleyan? I ended up graduating from Nebraska Wesleyan with a history degree. I love history because history gives me the opportunity to learn from the past, to understand why the present day is the way it is, so we won't make the mistakes pushing forward into the future. So I love history. I studied Native American history there. I got the opportunity to learn more about my Omaha tribe. And it's sad that it took a white lady at the University of Nebraska Wesleyan to give me the opportunity to learn about my native ways. Because when I was younger like this, if I had to do it again, I would sit there and pay attention more when I went to the powwows. I would have got more involved in all the rituals and ceremonies. I'm 28 now, and I'm slowly transitioning into learning my native ways. So you guys are still young, y'all still got the opportunity. But I went to Nebraska where I learned about history, learned about African American history, just learned about world history. So I got to learn all that stuff. I was originally went to school and I was bouncing the back and forth. I think my first semester, my first 2 or 3 semesters were just up in the air because I exactly didn't know what I wanted. Because I originally wanted to go to school to teach. So my first semester, I was like, I'm going to teach math. I went first semester and I started taking some of those math classes. I was like, whoa, I don't know if I want to do all this for the rest of my time here. So I took a step and I was like, no. Then I went into English because I love to write. So I started doing English. I just didn't feel that passion there. Then it was history. And I was like, well, I'm going to teach history and social sciences. Well, my history GPA, you can tell when you look at my history classes, you can tell what classes I like the most and what classes I want. Because at the time, you got to understand, when I was in school, I was taking care of my family. I was trying to start up this nonprofit organization. And I was dealing with whatever personal issue I was dealing with, whether it had been with females or with any type of conflicts off in the street, whatever it may be, I was dealing with that stuff. Girlfriend problems, anything like that. Then I had school. I mean, I remember coming home from waking up, going to sleep. All the people that stayed, because I used to stay in this apartment with some of the homeboys. So I remember I used to come home at night, go to my room, study, come out every sporadically and come out. They're doing the same thing. I go back in my room, I'll fall asleep for a little bit, come back up. It's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. They're doing the same thing they were doing 5 hours ago. Then I go back into my room, come back out in the morning to go to class. They're all spread out all across the apartment, knocked out, either from drugs, alcohol, whatever. So I'll go to class, come back in the afternoon. They're still sleeping. There'd be times when I would sit in my front room with them smoking and drinking and stuff, and I'll be sitting there writing a paper, books all over the front room table. I remember coming home, one of my homeboys used to sell drugs. He had boxes and boxes full of money just from the drugs that he sold. He was selling ecstasy pills, he was selling marijuana, he was selling crack cocaine, and he was selling meth. I'm talking about boxes and boxes full of it. That's the type of temptation I was living around. But like I said, if you got it in your heart and in your mind that you want something so bad, nothing is going to stand in your way. So I had a life full of obstacles and barriers and challenges. But I knew in my heart and my mind that nothing was going to stop me to get to my end goal. And my end goal was to graduate from college. So I graduated. I was the first one in my family to graduate from college, dating back generations. So now I broke a cycle. Now some of my cousins that are in my family, now they're going to school and going back to school and now I showed my cousins and my relatives that you have the opportunity, that it can be done. Now some of my cousins are going back to school at SCC. I got a brother that's down at Doane right now. My sister Eva's down in Kansas City. She just graduated from a fashion program down there. So now, what you guys can do, you guys don't understand. If you guys can sit there and break through all those barriers and challenges and put your mind to whatever you guys want to do and whatever you guys want to be, you guys are showing everybody that's in your circle, everybody that's around, that it can be done. So like I said, I graduated from Nebraska Western, I had a 2.7 GPA, I finished with a BA in history. I graduated in 2009. That wasn't too long ago, that was 4 years ago. So now, let's go back to GtS now. It was the fall of October 2005. I worked at the Salvation Army. I started coaching my brother's basketball team. The team at the time was called Cosmos Basketball. I grew up and played Cosmos basketball. I love Cosmos basketball. I took my brother's team. I took them on tournaments. We took them on tournaments. Me and my friend at the time, we took them on tournaments. We took them all across the state of Nebraska. And at the time, I remind you, I worked at the Salvation Army. And as I was working at the Salvation Army, I took a look back, because I grew up in the neighborhood. I went to the Salvation Army when I was little. And I took back and I took a step back and I was like, dang, this is the same. There's nothing that's being done or nothing that's trying to reach and teach these kids anything that's meaningful. Nobody's not teaching these kids life skills. Nobody's not teaching these kids social skills. Nobody's not trying to get these kids off codependency skills, off the system, the government, whoever it may be. Nobody's not building no character. It's like they just come to the Salvation Army and just show up, and that's it. So me, growing up in that neighborhood, I felt like it was a social responsibility for me to do something about it. It started from a basketball team of 10. By the time that spring happened, we switched our name up, we separated ourselves from Cosmos Basketball. We started a program called Triple Threat Basketball. Now at that time we had 3 teams. We had that team that we first started with, we added a 3rd and 4th grade team. Then we added a 6th and 7th grade team. We had 3 teams. So we went through the summer, played in tournaments in the summer. We went all across Nebraska. I mean, need I remind you, I didn't have nothing. All I had was an idea and a vision. So I was literally going to people I didn't even know or met before, asking them for money. We were going door to door, like we're just on our hustle, on our grind to get money to go do these things. But it wasn't until that fall and the end of the summer, me and my friend, Ishma, and at the time, Cindy, you know Cindy, we sat down at a table and realized there needed to be something more than just a basketball program. Because at that time, we did have a girls' basketball program. And we sat around this table and figured out that there needed to be something more meaningful, something that stood for something. And that's how GtS came to life. And need I remind you, I was 19, 20 years old at this time when this vision and this idea came about. 19, 20 years old. I'm 28 now. We expanded from a basketball program to other programs. We got a higher learning program that we do at Nebraska Westland, and we got partnerships with Nebraska Westland and First United Methodist Church. There we do life skills, social skills, we do codependency skills, we work on that stuff, we work on character building activities, we work on critical thinking activities, we work on using the kids' imagination. We do a lot of stuff there at that program. We started a farming program. We used to go out to Milford, Nebraska, this big acre of land. They used to go out there and farm. And then we got a plot of land on UNL. We did 10 community activities where we go in the community and clean up the community and stuff like that and take ownership back in our community. Because nobody's not going to take care of our community better than we do. Then obviously we got our basketball program. There's one story I want to tell y'all that probably would have kept me from graduating. There was a point in time when I was really depressed. It was the summer of 2008. I dropped out of college. I just basically gave up. I started hanging out with the wrong crowd. I started smoking weed. I was hanging out, just tripping. But it wasn't until that October when I got a ticket for vandalism because I got mad and upset. But it wasn't until that October of 2008 when I seen my daughter. My daughter changed my life. She changed my perspective on things. She changed everything. I got back into school. I graduated that January, and that's how I got my degree at Westland. And it got me more focused on GTS. Right now, GTS is in a great position. We created nothing out of something. GTS is in a great position right now. If you guys want to check out our website, we got a website. What GTS wants to establish and be in the community is a one-stop entity. Wants to take upon a holistic approach to dealing with kids that are come up from poverty or dealing with trauma, everything in that aspect. We want to create a one-stop entity that focuses on the holistic of the kid, the whole kid, not just bits and pieces. Because me standing and looking at the systems that we have in place, everybody got their own agenda, everybody got their own reason why they do what they do. So that means nobody's on the same page. So with GTS, we're trying to bring all these different entities and agencies and bring them all together. Here in the next month or so, we're going to start a program called Brighter Side Behavioral Health, where we're going to start family, individual, and group therapy. We're going to take upon more preventative, proactive, and more innovative approaches to therapy. So that means exercise, music. We want to get out of the traditional way of the way things are being done in the community. We want to challenge the status quo. So with that, we're going to do family, individual, and family. Athletics, we're going to expand on our athletic programs. We're going to start track this upcoming spring. Just recently, I've been talking to somebody about starting a soccer program. This summer, we're going to start our AAU basketball program this summer. And we're talking about, I don't know if y'all grew up, but you remember Joe Ballard softball back in the day? We're going to start something up like that this summer. But we're going to just concentrate on North Central side of Lincoln and expand like he did back in the day. We started a strength and agility workout program. We're just recently in the process of starting a mentoring program, like a big brother, big sister type program with Nebraska Westland, with the fraternity there. It's like a trial run right now, just to get all the kinks out before we expand and reach out to UNL and some other fraternities around Nebraska Westland. Right now we got 20 to 25 mentors that's ready to start mentoring some kids. I mean, I could sit here and talk all day about some of the stuff and some of the things that we're going to be doing with GTS, but GTS doesn't have no limits. It has a lot of flexibility. It's not trapped. It's not boxed in. The reason GTS was created so we can always be there for the kids and be for the kids, be a voice for the kids. The people that are in our circle right now are great people. They're people that want to see change. They want to see progress. They want to see you guys the triumph and try to bring that unity back in the community. So together we can work together to clean our communities up. Together we can work and bring businesses back to the community. So if you go off to school and become a doctor, a lawyer, a business owner, a teacher and stuff, instead of you guys running off somewhere else, you guys will come back to here as a community. Open a clinic. Create businesses in the community where we're employing our own community. Going to school for social work so you guys can work with your own population instead of depending in the hands of somebody else that has no idea what these kids are going through. We want empowerment in the community. That's what the direction and what GTS wants to be, change the face of human services around here in Lincoln. We want to challenge those people and raise the bar up and the expectations and standards. That's what GTS plans on doing in the community. But like I said, it started from an idea. With no money, no financial backing, I didn't have no stakeholders, no nothing. I'm just a poor kid from Lincoln, Nebraska that had an idea. Just recently, I went back to school at Bellevue University, got my master's in public administration. Basically, that does is give me the opportunity. These are my dreams. These are my goals. I took online classes, so it's a little different from the everyday classes. I took online classes. I took a SAL program at Bellevue. The online class is a little bit different than actually physical being in the classroom. But my goals and my dreams just don't stop there. Me personally, I'm about challenging the status quo. I'm about challenging the traditional way of things are done. I'm about calling out the people that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. My first and foremost goal, my priority list is my family. Don't get that wrong. Then after that is the community. Once we get GTS in a position to where I want to see GTS as you guys see the YMCA across the city. I want GTS just like that. Some of you guys might sit here and say that's impossible. Where I see impossible, I see possible. But my dreams and goals just don't stop with GTS. I want to challenge the state of Nebraska to get a charter school here. So with that said, on the individual level, I'm going to go back to school next summer. I'm actually going to be going to Dome and doing their master program in education. So I can get back and do because I got my master's in public administration for GTS. Now it's time for me to go chase my passion, my dreams. I got my master's in public administration for the community. I'm going to get my master's in education for me personally because I always had a passion and love to sit in front of a classroom in front of you guys and try to educate you guys and try to motivate you guys and try to get you guys dedicated to what you guys want to become and what you guys want to fulfill in your life. I promised my grandpa before he passed that I'll get my doctor's degree. So I'm going to go to Dome here and get my master's in education. Then after that, I'm going to look into a program at UNL to get my doctor's in education. So by the time this is all said and done, I should have a doctor's, 2 masters, and a bachelor's, and an associate degree. I should have 4 degrees. Oh no, but my dreams and goals do not stop there. I want to be the first Native American governor of Nebraska.
Yeah, like that.
But like I said, where I see impossible, I see possible. There's a lot of people saying you can't do it. There's a lot of people that try to bring you down. There's a lot of people that say you're not needed, you're full of it, you're fake, you're Uncle Tom. There's a lot of people that sit here and say you don't know what it's like. A lot of people try to discredit you. A lot of people try to pull you down. But through all that, at the end of the day, when I look at myself in the mirror, I know who I am, what I stand for, and what I'm about. I can care less what everybody else says. Because at the end of the day, I got to live with myself. At the end of the day, I got to sit there and answer to my family and make sure I'm a good role model to my kids. There's a slogan I got in my life that my grandmother tells me every single time I say it. And I rehearse it every day in my mind, every single day. Life is what you make it. Nobody's going to make it for you. Life is what you make it. Nobody's going to make it for you. Right now, GTS has a building on 56 and Aldridge. That's where I got to go to. After this, I got to go to a board meeting so we can solidify our strategic plans and go over our stability plans and make sure we got all of our ducks in a row. here in the next year and so. I guarantee it. You're going to be driving down anywhere you go, you're going to see GTS. I guarantee it. A year from now, you'll see a big billboard that says GTS on it. If you guys are going into social work, education, anything in that aspect of things, political science, always feel free to put your minds and thoughts into what some of the stuff. If you got an idea about the program, you got an idea about the vision, come to me. We can help you map it out and get it established. And you can be the driving force behind it. So like I said, life is what you make it. Nobody's going to make it for you. You guys got any questions? What time is it?
10:49.
Okay. A couple things I want to do. I want you guys to go around and introduce yourself. I want you to tell Angelo first, last name, and your tribal affiliation, and something about yourself, because he's done an excellent job of sharing with us who he is. Tell him something. Go ahead, Brady.
Well, Brady Clyde from Tonka, and